One shows the residents and the driveways and that sort of thing, and then there are diagrams of the area, and the remaining are scenes of the backyard and the interior of the house, and of the shoes identified as the ones that both suspects were wearing at the time that they were encountered.
Do the photographs that you see there, and what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 70, do they help document the work that you did on December 27th, 2007, and then the writing of your report and all that?
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate representations?
Yes.
I noticed that the photographs that you have there are not just printed on regular paper, but appear to be the 8x10 glossies.
Correct.
Is that important to you, that you have photographs for purposes of tracking that are 8x10 glossies?
When we do examinations of primarily interiors, but also close-ups of footprints in wooded areas or in the environment, we prefer the 8x10 glossies, yes. They allow us to tip and tilt to change the light reflection and refraction from the surfaces that are depicted so that we can see the footprints.
Can I say I would offer what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 7?
The objection is
Subject to previous objections.
understood. Those objections are preserved. 70 is admitted. Thank you.
And then, Mr. Harden, we're going to use our TV here. For the record, from State's Exhibit 70, we're looking at a slide, a cover sheet that says tracking around 1806 and 1910. You recognize that as being the addresses for the house at the top of the hill and then the trailer that was down the hill?
Yes, I do.
Some of the jury has seen some of these photographs more than once, so we go through these a little quickly to orient you and the jurors as to what we're talking about.
Okay.
We can see the next slide. For the record, this is from State's Exhibit 2, slide F, and you can tell us and tell the jury if this helps orient you as to the work that you did on December 27th, 2007.
Yes, this is an aerial photograph of the area. The large building is the Anderson house at the end of the driveway, and you can see numerous vehicles around there. You can also see to the right, lower right corner of the picture, you see the garden shed that is a subject of the traffic pattern that leads from the back steps to it. You also see the older roadway about where the States, the word States is, and the apostrophe S there, where McDuff and Wilker walked past that way to get into the wooded area behind the house. And this doesn't quite show the other residence, which is back to the left down that driveway.
Is there anything in this photograph that informs you or tells you anything about any kind of sign or tracks or things like that that you could see from the air?
The pathways where people have walked back and forth from the back door to the lawn shed are quite obvious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they of the same quality or the same age, or is there anything different between them?
One is a heavier traveled pattern than the other. Is probably about all that we can see from here.
If we could see the next slide. And for the record, this is the drawing. It says on top, Wayne Anderson residence, 1806, 346th Avenue Northeast. And does this help inform you with respect to the sign cutting that you 27th, 2007?
Yes. This photo represents the area of the green line around would be approximately what Mr. McDuff and Dick Wilker sign cut, looking for any entrance of other persons coming into the area or going out within a reasonable period of time, which would have been about a week, 5 to 7 days at that time. And the small dotted line that's in the backyard of the house is an area that Kathy Decker and I sign cut to ensure that no one went out of that area off of the lawn or no one came in.
You said that Mr. McDuff and Mr. Wilker sign cut the area of sort of bordered in green.
Yes.
How can you tell if somebody's come or gone within a week or so?
Any coming or going leaves the physical evidence, the footprints or whatever disturbance that we look for.
And if they found anything, would they report that to you?
Yes.
And do you know whether they found anything?
They found nothing, no. They encountered one set of tracks, as I recall, in about the area where the spot is in the lower right that intersects with the green, where someone had come to a point and stopped and stood there watching the backyard, and then turned and had retraced their steps, gone back. And from that point, they could see another residence up the hill and kind of over the hill from there. And previously, the deputies who were securing the entire area had interviewed a neighbor who said that he walked down that way and looked to see what the commotion was or what the interest was, and then went back.
So when you're doing your work and you're sign cutting in an area like this, are you still in contact with the deputies and Sergeant Toner and either providing them information or getting information from them?
Correct, yes.
We can see the next slide, please. And again, this is from State's Exhibit 2M. I'll just ask you generally whether you recognize this photograph.
Yes, this appears to be the driveway going up to the house, and you can see 2 or 3 vehicles parked there, a deputy's patrol car at the top and a couple of persons there, and then there's a van to the right, and that may well be the one of the state crime lab vans or something. I'm not sure. I don't know that I ever knew whose van it was or anything.
We can see the next slide. And this is from State's Exhibit 27D. And you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
So how do you recognize it?
This, not exactly this photo, but a photo picture was taken of the shoes that Michele Anderson was wearing when she returned to the residence on the 26th, not even sure, the morning of the 26th. And she was wearing these shoes, and the officers asked her if they could take a picture, and took a picture of it.
Did you see this photograph then on the 27th when you were there?
I don't remember seeing the photograph. I saw drawings of it, yes, in particular one that Kathy Decker had done the day before.
As you look at this photograph, as a tracker, are there things that are distinctive about this that stand out to you?
The tread pattern is fairly distinctive and would show quite well with the 4 circles in the sole portion of the tread pattern and the one in the heel, all connected with the lines, would leave a very distinct pattern on the ground surface. Also noted was the fact that the shoe had mud in the little lines, cleats there in the toe portion and in the instep, and a small piece of grass was impacted in the mud there in the instep, which could have been used to identify the shoe as having stepped on that mud at a particular time. Aging factor for the shoe impression on the mud.
So you mentioned the circles that are in the sole of the shoe. Is there any special name for these circles in the world of tracking?
No, they're circles. And there's a lug in the center of each one.
So what's a lug?
Anything that protrudes from the sole surface, from a flat sole surface. And the purpose and the intent by the shoe manufacturer is to make a surface that actually bears the weight of the person when they walk, and to have them separated so that it provides traction. It also provides a sole that is more comfortable to walk in because it flexes as you walk, that sort of thing.
So if a lug is anything that protrudes, such as the center of the circles, what are these sort of almost rectangular objects? What are those?
They're
also
lugs as well. They're lugs as well, yes.
And how about the lines that we see at the toe of the boot?
They're very small spaghetti-shaped lugs.
But they're lugs too?
Yes.
All right. We can see the next slide. And this is from Stage Exhibit 27E, and you recognize this as the same boot?
Yes.
So you mentioned you looked at drawings and drawings were made. If we could see the next slide. This is slide 70A. So describe to the jury what we're seeing here. I'm going to ask somebody to turn off the lights here quickly.
These are actually 3x5 cards that you can see the title on them, Joel Harden Professional Tracking Services. We have these printed, and all trackers in our program have these available for the specific purpose of drawing the footprint that they see at any missing person incident or a crime scene incident, or at any time in which they examine a footprint, they make a drawing and reflect the appropriate wear marks and the lug marks and so on and so forth. So you draw the print as accurately as you can, depending on what you can see. And the footprint on the right you can easily recognize as the one having the circles down the center of the sole and the one in the heel. It's very well drawn. And years ago, I was enlightened by two individuals who were very knowledgeable about how the brain works, how you remember things, and I asked specifically for hints about how to remember people's names. At that time I was doing classes that had anywhere from 40 to 100 students, and I wanted to be able to call each student by name. And those two gentlemen advised me, you speak to the student and ask them what their name is, and you write it down. And ask something about them that goes with the name. And this helped me to be able to remember people's names. They said, like you do when you draw the tread print of a track, do you understand why that's necessary and how that helps you? And I said, enlighten me. And they said, when the brain coordinates the pencil to make an exact replica in perspective, lug to lug and width of the lines and where the circles are and so on, as in this footprint, that etches it on the brain, on the memory. So that way you can remember that a month later or 6 months later or a year later, you will remember that tread pattern that you're looking for. And so that's why you have the students do that. No one had explained that to me at that time, and this was in 1972 or something like that, so it was many, many years ago. At that time, we had always drawn the footprint because in Border Patrol work, when a person crossed the border surreptitiously is the lawful term, and they crossed the border, we looked at the footprint and whatever substance it was on, sometimes on grass, sometimes on dirt, rocks, gravel, and collectively we made a full drawing of that footprint. And if we did not apprehend that person at the end of the shift, you took your drawing and you posted it on a clipboard. And then those trackers who were so designated as the experts in those days, when they came to work, they looked at the clipboard and they chose a footprint on the clipboard. And they went to get that particular person wherever he might be. Sometimes it took them 2 days, sometimes a week, until they brought the person back, and they would always show you his shoe and say, does this look like the one that got away? And those were the gotaways. I know it seems impossible as I tell you that story now, but in fact, when I started, we were responsible for everyone that crossed the border illegally. Now, you just kind of get out of the way lest they trump you under. But times have changed. That's why we draw the print, so we teach every student in our class spends hours learning to draw the print in exacting a detail as they can possibly see, whether it's on leaves or grass or gravel or open soil. And the one on the right there is quite a good replica, and it might take several footprints of seeing in a line of sight to put that all together and have a complete drawing.
We can see the next slide. And you recognize these shoe prints.
Yes, I do.
And if you need to, by any chance, come off the witness stand and I've got a pointer to illustrate anything, please let us know.
Sir, can you see okay, sir?
I can see these all right. Yes.
Now, what do you recognize this shoe print to be?
This was the other suspect at the scene, and the tread pattern bottom of the shoes that he was wearing at that time, and the appropriate drawing there of that pattern.
Again, the same theory with respect to making a drawing of the shoe print as you just talked about with respect to the first shoe print.
Yes.
Anything particularly distinctive about this shoe print that, as of December 27, 2007, you kept in the forefront of your mind for purposes of tracking?
Well, the pattern in the sole and reversed in the heel of the chevrons, if you will, that go backwards in the sole, it resembles a Christmas tree, and it's green, and so that kind of goes together. But it's a very distinct shoe tread pattern, and pretty easy to identify with the lines on the outside of the tread pattern that go out to the outer edge are they are contrasting actually with the lines that form the Christmas tree in the center. And they have the inside edge is like a clipped ribbon. It's at about a 45-degree angle when you look at them, and that's pretty distinctive when you step on the ground surface. That impresses in, and it leaves that little pointed piece there where it's clipped off. So it would be quite easy to identify those just from that.
And the area you're talking about, it looks like a clipped ribbon. I mean, if you could be a little bit more specific and tell us where you're looking. As I say, here's a pointer if you need it.
These right here, where it comes down right here, it's clipped off. See, it looks like a clipped ribbon in there. And that mark is very, very sharp and pointed, and it's right at the end of this lug on both sides. And so when you see them, it catches your eye.
You mentioned something about the lugs or something contrasting on the soil. Did I hear you?
To these on the outside, which are the different angle. So the ones come down, and then the ones on the outside go straight out. So,
If we could maybe, I don't know if you want to stay there, you're more than welcome to, or to have your seat as we look at the next slide. There we go.
let me just go ahead.
This is from State's Exhibit 27G. As I say, whatever's more comfortable for you in terms of talking about this. Does this slide represent how the backyard looked when you were there on December 27, 2007?
Yes.
So tell us what you see in this slide.
Can I get him to stand on the other side? of
Sure. Why don't we switch places?
There is a trail right here. Kind of see the edges of it. And it looks like it's connected to the back steps and comes on out. And this trail is one travel pattern, shoe print travel pattern. Over here is a different appearance. And this is where the grass is mashed down and reflecting the light. That's why it shows different than this. And actually, when you're standing on that side of the screen, these both look a lot different than they do on this side. So possibly from the jurors over here, this is not going to look quite like it does to the jurors over here, where this shows quite plainly, and this looks a little more subdued. One of the reasons, as I said earlier, that we like the 8.5 by 10 glossies is so that you can turn them so that you get the best light on them and you can see the minutia then that happens to be the footprints in many cases.
Yeah, you have you just stand on the other side if you don't mind. So is that sort of phenomenon of standing on one side of the photograph as opposed to the other changes your perspective? Is that something that's also reflected in the glossy photographs that you have in your hand,
Yes.
Exhibit 70?
Yes.
So the jurors have all that, since that's been admitted into evidence. What did you mean that the pattern that, the pattern that appears to be in the sort of center of the screen that I'm pointing to between the back steps and the word states? You said something about some kind of a track pattern or a trail pattern. I'm sorry.
Just a footprint travel pattern.
What does that mean, footprint travel pattern?
Where people walk back and forth.
And as you look at this from the different perspectives, how does that differ then from what we see on the left edge?
The grass over here is kind of laid down so that it's reflecting the light differently.
If you could show the jurors also how far, in this photograph, how far or how close to the house you got in terms of your examination, whether you went up onto the deck or started only at the steps of the deck or what?
We went right to the back door. Just looking at the surface from the back door to see any footprints that we could see on the deck surface. And then down each step we examined very closely, Kathleen Decker and I did, each step. And right here, and it may show in one of the other photos better, is a bit of a muddy place where as you ascend the steps or come down, back and forth, numerous steps, it actually squishes the mud up and you get a little muddy area there. And in that muddy area, we were able to see very distinct footprints.
And Detective Decker talked to us about a white sort of container that was located up on the back deck and some dirt around the base of it. Do you recall seeing that when you were there?
Yes.
And the reason I ask is, do you recall seeing much, or by the way, of footprints between the back door and the bottom of the steps?
No, there was evidence of numerous footprints, but they weren't distinguishable. You couldn't pick them out.
Well, why is that?
Well, because of all the traffic on there and tracking some mud up and wiping it off when you come down and that sort of thing. And Numerous people have been up and down there.
Is there, when you look at these two paths here in the state's Exhibit 27G, the one sort of in the middle of the photograph and the one that goes off to the left, can you tell just by looking at them either on the site or in your hands there, whether they're from two different sources, whether they were made in different ways?
Yes, this one is just walking. This one, you see there's a lighter area right here. And then this kind of starts on the other side of the clothesline pole here, starts off from there and continues, goes out of the picture. This one has the grass laid down and it's reflecting the light. More than this is just footprints upon the grass.
Where the grass is laid down here on the left, reflecting the light, do you also see footprints in that path?
I can't see them from this angle, but footprints are probably there, yes.
We could see the next slide. This is from slide State's Exhibit 2Z. And tell us what we're seeing here.
This is the back corner of the house. This little muddy trail that goes around there is where the residents and others that go to the house have come and gone from the driveway in the parking area around to the backyard. And that's why this is a muddy trail. This is a little shed that was there and the rugs or whatever was here. And the two traffic trails that we're seeing from the back steps are not visible in that slide, really.
So when you first approached the backyard, did you do it from this side of the house or the other side?
From this, right here. We came right around here. Kathy Decker, the day before, she was there on the 26th, and now it's the morning of the 27th, approximately 8 o'clock in the morning, and we're looking, and all of the footprints that are here are primarily those of medical personnel, first responder personnel, we call them, medical personnel, first arriving deputies. Remember I said the crime scene people were already there and had secured the house. Some of them went around back to the back steps and so on. And so their footprints are all of this, where you can see the mud is turned up here and the grass and the weeds are mashed down. All of these are footprints. These, primarily because they didn't want to walk in the mud, so they walked over here on the grass. And you can see the light area here. This is the footprint, and walked right around here and then just went around the corner. Similarly, there are footprints over here and some coming up from down below. And Kathy Decker and I walked along here, coming into that area.
So how do you know from looking at this scene that those footprints were from first responders?
They were there on the scene, and from where the cars were parked and so on, this was where they responded. This is where to get to the house and get in the house. We know that they were first responders because, as Sergeant Toner had told us down below it when we first came up, that the first person that arrived on scene was an employee, I believe, and found that the homicide had occurred and called it in and stood there and waited until deputies arrived. And so deputies were the first, and they called medical personnel and so on and so forth. So,
well, let me ask you, as you look at this, is there a concept called aging?
Yes.
Aging footprints and things like that? How can you tell whether these were made on the 26th or a week before?
well, for one thing, you just look at the grass. If they were made a week before, you wouldn't see them still, the grass retaining the footprint the way it is. And on the 25th, there was a slight rain, and right here where you see some of this mud, some of that would have been rained on. It didn't rain much, but it rained enough that it would have eroded some of the fresh mud that was turned up by the footprints. It would also have deteriorated some of the footprints that were out here on both sides.
So when you approach this scene, are you actually then looking at the footprints in the sort of the path of approach as well as the actual back unit itself?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
If we could see the next slide. This is from Station Exhibit 27S. So tell us what we're seeing here.
Here we see, this is the clothesline pole that we looked at previously, is right back here somewhere just out of the picture. And here is this traffic pattern with the grass all laid down, and you can see it goes right over to here. And this grass is shiny and looks like it kind of glares, is because that grass is pressed down. It's longer grass, it's pressed down and it's reflecting the light back to you. And it does that in the photographs as well. You see light here and here and here and here and on out here. This is a single person walking out there. Here's a footprint here and here. This is another single person that steps right here and then right here and walks out there. So individuals walk in different places out there, but this is a good trail or a swath of sign that's all integral to itself, this wide, and it just goes right on out there.
Does anything about the way that the light is shining on it or the way the grass is compressed tell you the direction that movement was had over that path?
It's going from this area right out here all the way out there. It's only going in one direction, and that's the evidence of something being sliding. So it slides over the grass and mashes it all down as it goes. That's what this is.
How do you know that? That something's sliding?
From experience. I've seen it many, many, many times. And, well, probably everyone has.
Well, let me ask you this then. Can you tell whether that pathway and the direction, whether only one thing was slid across that area or dragged across that area, or more than one thing?
Once we saw this, and Kathy had seen this the day before, so really what we needed to do was inspect it more closely to ensure what we were seeing and what pertained to it and what didn't. There are footprints that go with this slide area because somebody slid something over there or drugged something over this area that arrives right over here where it goes. And when you look, the footprints are there. And that's what we wanted to see, was who was sliding or dragging the object that mashed all of this down. And that's what we did very close, and you can see those footprints, and they were only going in one direction. One of the things is, remember that trail where it said just people walking? You kind of see that right here, and you can see it over here as well. And this one is kind of going back to where this comes from as well. This is the one that goes back to the house. And people, probably deputies, medical personnel, and so on and so forth, also could see this and used an alternative route in returning to the house and that sort of thing. So that's what the other trail is. This is the one that we were primarily interested in at the time.
When you were there on December 27th, I think you told us that the body of Wayne Anderson had been removed by the time you got there.
Yes, this was Mr. Anderson's body laying here.
Was the condition of that path that you've been talking about different than what we see in this photograph in terms of showing a dragging and things like that?
So his body was removed on the 26th, yes. And when I got there the next morning, this had changed a little, probably, but I wasn't there on the 26th. So all I know is what I saw on the 27th. But I also know from many years of experience that a week later this would still show, because the grass on this lawn is long enough that when it is laid down like that, and the temperature for each day and each night was pretty much in the same temperature range. The humidity changed slightly if during the middle of the afternoon the sun came out a little bit or the cloud cover got less, the humidity would get less, and so you would have a brief period of drying. But essentially, this is going to show for until the grass kind of stands itself up again. So it was clearly seen. In fact, that's what we were seeing in the aerial photograph on that day, but you could have taken an aerial photograph 2 weeks later and you would have seen the same thing.
You mentioned that the marks on the grass and showing the sliding or the dragging were in one direction. Were there any marks associated with that path showing somebody going back to the house or back in the other direction, not sliding something, but just walking?
There were tracks going, yes, but, well, not going the same way and not necessarily in it, but coming from here right back to the back door.
And with those, are those tracks where, well, let me ask you a different question. Is there something called, something about stride length in tracking?
Yes.
What is stride length?
Stride length is, and we use the term stride interval. In many different vocations, stride length is a term that's commonly associated with a definition for that particular environment or vocation. When in military uses stride length. Military also uses pace to be a certain average length. Sometimes this shoe print measured to the next shoe print is a stride, and for a tall man you might have a stride that's 32 inches, but that includes the shoe print on both ends. Some only include one shoe print, some include the other shoe print. For our purposes in working with law enforcement and search and rescue, and in order to identify one person's average normal stride length from another, we needed to have a different term that pertains solely to our business. And so we created the term stride interval. Stride interval is that distance from the tip of the toe of 1 foot to the back of the heel of the next successive step. That's the interval between. And for us, that helps us to define very precisely what the person is doing, what they know about their circumstances, what their intentions and motivations are. Also, when persons are dragging something like this that's heavy and that is pressing the ground surface all down and uniformly pressing the grass, you're going to be backing up. One of the reasons that you cannot hide your sign or direction from backing up is because it's the opposite of going forward, and your body was not designed to walk backwards. I know that we have occasions when you see somebody doing that, but the fact of the matter is your muscle and bone structure does not allow you to back up with the same ease of movement that you go forward. And so backing and dragging your body, because obviously it's too big to carry, takes very short steps and a whole lot more of them, and clearly shows that you are backing up step by step as you go backwards. And in this case, there were two people dragging the body, both taking short steps.
And could you tell that by looking at the stride interval then of those
Yes,
steps?
yes. And also the depression. When you back up like that, your heels dig in because instead of the weight coming off the toe, the ball of the foot and the toe, it comes off the heel. And you pull your heels like that, and so that's what clearly indicates that you're backing up, is you pull your heels out in the direction of travel. Instead of stepping forward, you're stepping back.
Let me ask you what may be an obvious question, that is, if you're looking at the depression that's made by backing up, would you expect it to be lesser or greater if someone's simply walking backwards?
It's greater.
Or if they're carrying something heavy?
When you're carrying or pulling something like that, the force is always goes down on your heels if you're backing up.
So when you're making this examination on the 27th, are you, how much time are you devoting to this? I mean, are you on hands and knees with your face in the grass, or are you looking at photographs or looking from some distance? How long does this take?
Kathy Decker and I spent from 8 o'clock in the morning until 11, so we spent 3 hours basically just studying from here, from the shed to the back of the house. It didn't take us very long to go around the edge of the yard and determine, because we were looking for this kind of sign, whether or not someone had come in. Also, we had Mr. Welker and Mr. Decker up above us, or not Decker, but McDuff up above us were cutting around also. So we were just doubling up their cut to ensure that they didn't miss anything and to ensure that nobody came or went out of the yard there.
So when you were making your determination that an object was being dragged across the backyard and by someone walking backwards, could you tell how many people were dragging? One or two or more? How do you know it's two?
Because they were uniform in going, they were consistently together going across there.
And could you tell who was who in terms of different shoe prints? What shoe print was on one side, what shoe print was on the other in the course of the dragging?
No, we didn't. We could have, had we have been asked to, but at that time it didn't seem like it was even important. One of them was walking here and one of them was walking here. They were together going across there, so we didn't attempt to do that.
Did you make any determination as to how many trips were made from the back of the house to the shed carrying something, carrying or dragging something?
No.
So when
there was more than one, but
how do you know there's more than one?
Well, because the footprints coming back from the shed were the same two persons, and they made more than one trip coming back. So they had been there could have been 3 times. And I'm not sure. Could have been 4 times even.
With respect to the footprints that you saw of whomever was carrying or dragging something across the grass, did those footprints match the prints that we talked about earlier from Michele Anderson's boots or from Joseph McEnroe's boots?
Yes.
How do you know?
The 2 footprints going out here and going right across here also to the shed door in 2 different places were those footprints of Mr. McEnroe and Michele Anderson. Yes.
Did you and Kathy Decker, during the course of your work, examine the area around the shed, either on the sides or in the back, for the presence of sign or footprints?
Mrs. Anderson's body was still in the shed. And in this particular case, the door is closed. When I arrived there, when we arrived there on the morning of the 27th, the door was open, and so you could see in the shed. And we made a very close examination of the threshold area of the doorway, and Kathy Decker had been inside the shed, which is a very, very narrow space, the day before. And she had actually seen some footfall traffic in there. I didn't see because I didn't go in there. So we just really focused on the sill of the shed to determine who had gone in and out, and because there was some blood on there, and some of the footprints were blood tracks that were in there, and so those were of great interest to us.
Is there anything else about this photograph, State's Exhibit 27S, that helps us learn more about the work that you did on December 27th?
We together also cut for sign around the shed, went behind it and came back. And along this side over here, right up against the shed, there was an area where something had been laying there, about approximately 5 feet long, and it was pretty obvious that it was a roll of something that was laid right up against the shed. And we noticed that it was not there, but this material that here that was covering Mr. Anderson and portion is now exposed looked like it might be, in fact, the material that was rolled up alongside the shed. Don't know that, except that it's close and handy, and it had debris on it that it would have being under this cedar tree and whatnot, so I assumed that it was gotten in order to cover Mr. Anderson.
And when you and Detective Decker then sign cut around the shed itself, do you find any other footprints that didn't match?
We did. We found a footprint that didn't match either Mr. McEnroe or Miss Anderson, and we didn't know who it pertained to at all. And it seemed we didn't find it walking over here, but we found it right around the edge of the shed and in behind the shed. And we couldn't tell where it had come from or where it went, other than it came from and went back out across the lawn.
And could you age that footprint, tell when it had been left there?
It was older than this, than these footprints.
How do you know that?
Just by the appearance of it, and where we could see it there, I use a term which is like flat paint. I have a hard time with paints. Glossy paint, semi-gloss paint, and flat paint. All looks the same to me, except the flat doesn't have any reflection to it, right? And out here, a footprint in this area that's 24 hours old would look flat. It wouldn't have any life to it. It just doesn't look fresh anymore. Clear, distinct, you can see it easily, but it's not the same, so you know that it's 24 hours old or more.
Did you have, as you were making your examination of the pathway and the different prints, did you and Detective Decker have photographs of the shoe wear from the first responders, whether they're medics or detectives or something like that? Did you have pictures of those?
No.
Is that important?
Well, it would be if you could get it, but at that time, first responders were all gone. I don't remember whether I knew at the time whether Kathy had arrived on the scene before first responders had left or not, so I don't know about that. I don't recall even asking. The crime scene people and whatnot were all inside, and they didn't want you in there, and so they kept tape over the doors, and so we couldn't get those. In this particular instance, we were primarily interested in the persons who had dragged this body out here, because all the drag marks and the footprints ended right at the shed. And when you opened the door, there was Mrs. Anderson, and it's pretty obvious that the footprints that came right out here and went right to the shed door and then went right back were the ones that we were interested in. Therefore, we cut around to make sure there was none others coming in or going out. It was all of these footprints were added later. So those were the two that we were primarily interested in.
Were there any footprints at all, other than the two we've talked about from Ms. Anderson and Mr. McEnroe? Any other footprints along the path of the drag mark from the shed to the back stairs?
No.
You mentioned that one of your tasks was you went to the shed itself and that door was open.
Yes.
And what is it that you wanted to why look at the sill of the shed?
Just to make sure that there were no other footprints that were involved in this incident.
We can see the next one. This is slide from State's Exhibit 27H, and tell us what we're seeing here.
From the outside, this is a piece of old carpet that we presumed, because it had been placed over Mr. Anderson, was the one that came from alongside the shed. Don't know that, but we kind of presumed that. And then you can see a blood impression here, and actually there's one here and so on the step that's outside, and then of course the blood here, and faint blood smears or smudges on the door sill. These are the stocking feet of Mrs. Anderson's body laying there, and so this was as far as I went, was just to examine this area and this stool and everything coming up, and you can see a lot of blood on this material here, just to ensure that those going in and out of here were the same two subjects and not others that we hadn't seen.
You say there was a blood impression on the area of the step just underneath the sill there, under where the big blood stain is. When you say impression, do you mean blood stain, or is there a footprint impression or something else there?
There's just blood here. It's not in the size and shape of a footprint. It's just right there. That's right beneath this. Not an identifiable footprint at all.
Does the location of the blood stain that we see on the front of the step there that leads actually into the shed, does the location or the characteristics of that have any interest to you in terms of tracking where that blood is, to try to explain why it's there, where it came from?
Well, I saw the picture that we just saw previously of Mr. Anderson's body, primarily laying where this grass is mashed down back here, out in front, right? And it appeared, because his head was quite bloody, and this appears to have hair, having blood in the hair. I think his head was pushed against, or he was pulled against the edge of the door there, and then was down on that step where this is.
Now, you said you did not go in the shed and examine Judy Anderson's body?
No, I did not.
If she had suffered a head wound and there was a lot of blood and matted in her hair, could that also have created that stain?
It could have. It could have. Yeah.
Tell us, when you're looking now, going from an area of grass to a hard surface, is it easier or more difficult to pick up evidence of sign by way of footprints or shoe prints?
Not necessarily easier or more difficult. It's just a different surface.
So that was my question: tell us about this surface in terms of what it looked like in its consistency, for purposes of looking for sign.
In this photo, it looks pretty smooth, but in fact, this is older 4x8 sheets of plywood, and for those of you who are familiar with plywood, you know that after a while, if it's weathered, which this would be somewhat from being in the doorway, the ribs that are actually the rings in the tree. When plywood is made, it is shaved off around and around and around, leaving a big sheet that all have the rings in them. Well, those rings begin to show as little ribs. And so this gets rough. And some of you may have plywood and you see the little ridges that catch the dirt and catch the mud and that sort of thing, which makes it's not a good reflective surface for footprints or any other kind of an impression. So from that standpoint, you have to kind of look a little closer to identify a footprint.
So you say it's not a good reflective surface for footprints. How is it as a surface for capturing footprints? In other words, for having footprints that are left there, regardless of how well you can see them. Is it more difficult because of the ridges? Or?
Yeah, it captures them. This one in the corner, and hopefully jury can see, but you can see the lug marks right here in this. Whereas you can see smudges here, but it's a little more difficult to see them. This is the trafficked area where people come in and go out. This is up against the side here. See how close it is to the door jamb and this, whatever this shelving or whatever it is that's in here. So this is not as worn down, not as rough. The paint hasn't been marred as much as it does out here where people normally walk. And so this shows you a footprint that you probably can see from your point of view there. Whereas these others are going to be far more difficult to see.
If we could see the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 27II. And does that help us see a bit more of what's going on with respect to the sill there as you walk into the shed?
Yes, this is the footprint that we could see right here. You still, here's where the blood was below the sill, and you see something there and a couple of blood spots, and over here you see something, and over here, but it's too far away. You need to be closer to actually see something there, I'm presuming a little. And having been to many homicide scenes, we know that a medical officer, trained and skilled to do so, had to pronounce this body dead. So someone went in there and did that job. And they did that on the 26th, after, of course, the crime had been reported and they were on scene. This would be an area where that person would step to go in there because they know to be very careful and not destroy any evidence and that sort of thing, and you don't have much alleyway there to get through. So you would have to look at this real close to determine whose footprint this was. Now, if it was a smooth sole shoe, it would be a detective wearing street shoes, Oxfords of some type. If it's a lugged boot, it very well could be fire, EMT, fire service going in there or something like that. So we have to look real close at this to determine what we can understand and know about it. These, we just have to get closer so we can see them.
If there were the presence of the distinctive boot patterns that you're interested in here along the sill, and a first responder did step somewhere on the sill to go in, would the first responder stepping on that obliterate the other prints?
Not necessarily. We would see that person's prints on top of the others. It might mar it a little bit or change it slightly, but you would still see one was on top of the other.
Would you be able to age those different prints, say that one was 24 hours old and another 72 hours old?
Yes, you should be able to, yes. Yeah.
We could see the next slide. This states Exhibit 27JJ, so a bit more of a close.
Well, again, we're seeing the legs and the feet of the body. And we can see probably the striations here, which are those ribs of the plywood itself. And over here in the corner, we can kind of see what we were talking about with the footprint. This is a little more obvious than what I was talking about it looking like it's hair that's wet with blood that is against the board. And we can see that there's a footprint here and a footprint over here, but that doesn't really give us enough to identify them as we would like to do.
We could see the next slide. This is State's Exhibit 27 double K. So a bit more of a close-up on the right side of the entry into the shed. Tell us what we see.
Well, right here is a round circle with the void around it, which matches the circles that are in Michele Anderson's shoe soles, if you remember those. And from this one, here's another curve right here, which would be one down here. And see this one right here? They're 1, 2, 3, right there. So this is Michele Anderson's shoe, or a tread pattern that matches her shoe right here. Over here, this is a little bit different. It's a smudge. It seems to be going the opposite way. This one, you see real fine marks up here. And so this one is going in, and this one is probably the same one coming out. Over here, you can see these marks in which there's a blood transfer. Blood transfer is stepping on blood and then taking the next step, and that leaves the impression. Is the blood that is on the lugs here is transferred then to the next place. Often this happens with any type of liquid or any type of substance that will be transferred. Dust often is transferred that way, or charcoal, if you think about it that way, those types of things. This one looks quite a little bit different, but there's our circle right there. And here's another circle right here. So that one matches this one.
Is there any indication that the circled pattern that we see on the far right was either stepped over or stepped on by a first responder?
I don't see that. No, I don't see that.
So we don't know if a first responder stepped in this location or stepped over onto the carpet or what?
Could have very easily stepped from the carpeted stool out here, the step that's carpeted, up to the rug.
I think you mentioned with respect to an earlier photograph that the image that we see in the middle of the photograph on the left side appeared to be a blood stain.
Yes.
Is there any way from what you observed as to sort of explain the shape of that blood stain? Whether it was stepped on, whether it was...
It has not been stepped on and mashed into the wood, no. Or mashed down on the wood.
And can we see in this photograph an example of the ridges that you talked about that come up in a plywood surface?
One of the things that we see in this footprint, and it's not as clear in this as I haven't seen, but right here is a line. This is pretty consistent, has about the same amount of blood everywhere you look. And right here is a line that goes down and one that comes across here. And when you look back at the two footprints, the two septic footprints that we're talking about, this matches the McEnroe footprint. And so this one, right here is the circle. So that would be the Anderson footprint, and this would be the McEnroe footprint. And the McEnroe footprint is actually lifting off the blood and leaving a white strip or a white line. So that footprint came after the other one. In normal circumstances, to lift the blood off like that, as clean as it is, the blood would had to have dried slightly so that it all comes up and not just mashes it out so that it makes a mess. So this one looks like it's several hours after the initial footprint is made there.
Can you tell from looking at these prints which set of prints went into the shed first and which came out last?
This one with the round circle went in first, and this one is several hours since then, older, newer, I mean. This one is older than this one.
We can see the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 27LL. Is this now a close-up of the previous line?
Yes,
So
this is easier. I'm sure that the jury can probably see this main line right here, and then here's the arrows going out, and right here is the circle. So you can see where this shoe print has lifted the blood off up here and there.
When you say this line here, is this that Christmas tree effect we saw
Yes.
at the bottom of Mr. McEnroe's
Yes.
shoes?
Mhm.
Are there any other prints in here that are of interest or significant to you?
Here's the circle right over here at the spot in the center of it, and we know which footprint that is. It goes all the way over here, and here's our, I believe, excuse me, here the jury can probably see this circle right here with the lump in the center of it, and the lines going out goes with this whole footprint. And then the one down here,
Places.
I don't, here's a circle here, right there also. So that's a different shoe print. Here's a circle here, different shoe print. And this is the McEnroe one here that's on top of this one. But here's a circle right here, so it's right on top of that.
Now, looking at this same photograph, we see some apparent red staining near the bottom of the photograph, slightly off center left. Does the shape or the orientation or the characteristics of this staining tell you anything about how it got there, or once it got there, what happened to it?
It is, well, it's pulled.
How do you know that?
You can see where this starts here and it goes across here, and this starts here and it goes here, and then it's lifted up like it's being pulled in there. You can see the striations, and it right here has got an arrow to it.
And we, in this photograph, are we directly above that stain that appeared on the front of the step?
I believe this is it right here, yes.
We can see the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 27MM. This is even a bit more of a close-up. Does this help us understand the presence of the Anderson boot and the McEnroe boot?
This is the McEnroe boot that we were talking about that lifts the...
For just a second. I'm not using this route. Would you mind if you could just step a little bit more to the side, just make sure everybody can see behind you there. Sorry. There we go.
And then I better get over there.
All right.
Flat screen, I can't see. Here's the McEnroe boot that we've been talking about right here that's lifting the blood off of the wood. And I'm looking for the circles. Here's the definite circle right down here. Maybe the easiest one to see. You can't see the others. Here's a circle right here also. But we had a couple up here that Oh, right here is a circle, right here. And right back here's another one.
I mean, only if I could, once you do that, if you just, yeah, be mindful that the jurors over there might not be able to see. Anything else in this photograph that is of significance with respect to identifying footwear patterns?
We can clearly see the two footprints, and we don't see any tread pattern from any third or fourth person. Really all we see are the two, and more than one trip in and out. But that's what that would make.
And can we see the next slide, please? And this is from State's Exhibit 27 double N. So tell the jury what we're seeing here.
And this is over next to the door jamb, where the person stepped in there, and we can see a lug, and we can see a lug, and we see a circle, and we see another circle, and I was thinking that we were seeing the McEnroe print. We see the circles, so we know that this is the Anderson footprint going in. We see the legs on the outside.
We've got another picture coming up with a slightly different angle.
Okay.
Before we go to that, is there red staining there then in the Anderson blueprint or footprint?
Right here.
Can you tell whether that is staining on which the boot has come down on the staining, or is the staining on the boot and is being transferred from the boot to the sole?
It's on the boot being transferred.
How do you know that?
Well, there's a difference if the blood is up like a drip, it's already there, and you step on it, it squishes it out to the side. This is actually just a transfer. There's no depth to it. It's just shallow.
So it's coming off the boot.
It's coming off the boot, yes.
If we can see the next slide. This is from State's Exhibit 2700. And is that the same shot but more of a close-up?
Yes, yeah. Yes. And again, we see the circles that are in there for the Anderson shoe. I believe that the McEnroe shoe is there also, but I'm not seeing it at this angle. Show it to the jury.
See the next one. Next one is slide 70C. So show us what we're looking at here.
Well, again, this is the one that's close to the edge, and circles here we can see are these that are in here. I'm looking. I believe that I have seen the McEnroe shoe in this slide before, but I'm not seeing it clearly to show to the jury at this time.
Is this a different experience looking at a flat screen versus looking at a glossy photograph versus looking in person?
Yes.
So I may ask you to do then during the break is we'll take a look at the same slide with the glossy and talk about it after the break, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And if we could see the next slide. From State's Exhibit 27 double J. And that says, I think, a similar slide that we looked at before. Does that look right?
Yes.
Okay, and then the next slide, State's Exhibit 27 double Q. So tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, the arrows in this slide have been labeled already, but right here we can see the line and where it crosses there. To double that line, it's also where it makes the Christmas tree. This one here,
This is the middle
has-
arrow.
pardon?
For the record, this is the middle arrow you're looking at there?
Yes, this arrow here is pointing to this circle right here, and this circle right here, which are the ones that we could see before. I think that the jury probably can see those. And this right here is that lift-off area with the Christmas tree lines on both sides right here.
And I think there's one more slide in this series. This is from State's Exhibit 27 double T. Is this a close-up of what we're looking at?
Yes, it is. Here's that lift-off center bar, and here's the sides that make the Christmas tree for the McEnroe print. And this is the Anderson print. This circle here you can see quite plainly. So both of them are right here. Here's the here with the down.
This is a good time for a break.
That sounds good, thank you. If we could get the lights, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please leave your notepads and pens here on the chair in the next seat in the jury room. Please don't discuss the case amongst yourselves or do any research and the like, and we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. Thank you.